Welcome to the Golden Feather. Grab a pint, a plate, and pick your seats. Your hosts Vertek and Shibibri are back with their latest adventure.
Hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Golden Feather. Oh, today is, what is today? The 3rd of February, 2023. We are on episode 154. And this one is called Ashes.exe. Because we have RoboGamer1HD with us. How are you today, Robo?
You know, I'm doing pretty good. Surviving, getting places, you know, trying to get there.
Hey, sometimes that's all you can ask for, is just moving forward to some degree or another.
How about you guys? How are you doing?
That's pretty good. It's been a long day. It's Friday.
That's the bonus part. It's Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. But Fridays are sometimes also the toughest. I was gonna say, we're really close to a perfect palindrome because it's 2323, but if it was like March 2nd, which we're not going to be alive that day, but that'd be 3223.
Yeah, there you go.
We're getting there. Yeah, I keep looking for random dates that are like 1, 2, 3, 4 and stuff like that.
Well, we had Friday the 13th, so I had to call it like terrifyingly fun or something like that. So, hello, Ashes and Air, welcome in. And Grimpy Guy.
Nara.
And Magisto, nice try. No, that was perfect timing though. Vertek did win the Champion of the Hill though.
Yeah, I did.
But today we are going to be talking a little bit about the most recent live stream, from the lens of the community. For those of you that are new here, hello, welcome in. We are a community-focused podcast, and we like to talk about topics from the Reddit and the forums, similarly to Paradox. However, we like to discuss more of how the community is feeling and what the community thinks, and more importantly, our guest, Robo here. We like to talk about the type of things that Robo is doing and the kind of content that Robo plans to make and things like that. So you're going to get our opinions and Robo's opinions, and we're going to do our best to talk about the opinions of the community. So grab a drink, grab a plate, pick your seats, and get ready because we got a show ahead of us. So just a preface, Robo did not watch the YouTube video, but you did watch most of the Twitch live stream, right?
Yes.
And you had a question for us?
Yeah, the question that I had is, what is the difference between the Twitch version and the YouTube version?
And
the YouTube one is more better.
Great.
The short answer is. And honestly, the Twitch version was a little bit rushed, so the audio was not that great. It was not very well balanced, and the gameplay / tank showcase was a little less than ideal. However, when they were able to take a little bit more time and go through it a different direction, Vertek and I absolutely loved it, and I think it's absolutely worth a watch. If you were upset by the live stream, I highly recommend, like TGFTavern, on behalf of both of us, highly recommends that you go watch the YouTube version and give us your thoughts off of that.
Yes.
The formatting is better. I really loved how they took a moment to go through the stuff before they went adventuring. And that to me was a much better format of doing everything. But I'm not going to ruin anything because Robo hasn't seen it yet. But yes, much, much better in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, without necessarily, I don't think it would be ruining anything. But I think to at least give you a decent idea, you've at least heard a bunch of the complaints about the live version, right? Like, you know, we don't know what the abilities do. We don't know what they look like. We don't know this and that and the other,
and that might have been prefaced in some of the forums too, it looks like, but hopefully some people notice the changes.
Yeah. Well,
I would honestly say it's kind of hard to not notice the changes right off the bat.
Yeah, it's really hard to not notice because the first part is the first part is much better. They actually go through and look into all the videos. It's actually what I think it's a perfect mix of informative and see it in action and them actually having fun with it. You can tell they're actually still having fun with it, even though it was like a re-recording later in the same day.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was good. There's a lot of other stuff to it as well, but
But now that we got your question out of the way, we have a bunch of questions for you, as per usual. So for those that don't know who you are you, and what kind of content do you plan to make?
Well, of course, I'm RoboGamer1HD. I was formerly as Frosty Coffee in the past with the Golden Feather. But I like to do a lot of cinematic type of, how do you describe it? Informative information with Ashes of Creation. I always have had that kind of keen eye with like creating a cinematic type of outlook with my content. Right now, I'm not doing a lot of Ashes content because there's a lot of other games that I'm also covering on my channel. But when Ashes of Creation does get creeping closer and closer to launch, that is probably when I'll start to pick up Ashes of Creation content a lot more. But in the past, I did some informative cinematic type of information regarding like how the world is getting built by players and things like that. So that's the kind of content that I definitely started with.
Nice.
Yeah.
What part of Ashes drew you into Ashes of Creation?
Gosh, I'd have to say the world was probably one of the biggest ones. Like,
it was so pretty.
It's so pretty. And I think like from the art aesthetic to like just like the way the world has been built, the way Steven talks about Ashes all the time and the lore, like I'm a big lore buff. Like for other games, I love diving into the lore side of things. It's really cool seeing how the world became to be, kind of thing, how they decided to make everything connect together. So that's the kind of side of me that really interests me the most, like especially like the visual aesthetic, and that's where a lot of things come together, is like with Unreal Engine 5, for example. Like before I was interested with like the Kickstarter and stuff like that way back when, but now like as soon as they jump to Unreal Engine 5, like that's a whole level of wow that just surprised me even more.
That's absolutely fair. Tech, do you have any questions?
Oh, yeah. So, the cinematic type stuff, like, do you have any idea what your first, are you planning like a first video when you go to try to dive back in deeply? Like when Ashes, let's say Perfect Storm. Alpha 2 hits, and your very first video, what would it be?
Probably all you need to know about Ashes of Creation.
Okay.
That's probably where I'll go.
Little primer action.
Yeah, just like an altogether general video, just to like, and it's interesting because even though I don't fully talk about Ashes of Creation with like a dedicated video towards Ashes of Creation right now, I still talk about Ashes of Creation throughout my content from time to time. Like I talk about how I compare Ashes of Creation to like various other games that I'm doing on my channel. So I'm still keeping my viewers in the know about Ashes of Creation to some degree, while still doing other content. So, and in the future, when I do jump back into Ashes, people will say like, oh yeah, I remember him talking about something like that, and then jump back right in.
Nice.
Yeah.
That works. Let's see. All right. Well, we have a bunch of things to talk about today, and we're gonna be sharing your viewpoints on a lot of those.
Perfect.
Big busy topic day. So many things.
So we have a couple things in general on the tank stuff, not necessarily from the most recent video, but just in general, such as mob leashing and taunt and threat, stuff like that. Narc made a video, and he was talking about how like the Ashes of Creation tank looks promising. and Voxtrium from the welcome in. Voxtrium from the forums kind of said that they liked the idea that he brought up in the video. That's the link for those of you that are watching. And the part that he's talking about is starting at 12:07. And it was a way to make the taunt ability something more than just a button used on reflex, essentially. And then they kind of surmised it at the bottom, saying basically he suggested that DPS accidentally aggro a mob have a list of abilities not standardly used in rotations. Things that can apply like Skittish. Skittish alone does nothing. However, a tank will also have the ability not standardly used in rotation that applies Distract. When the target has Skittish and Distract is applied, it would act as a taunt. And that'd be a way for the DPS to kind of remove its own threat and the tank to kind of regain some threat. It's kind of like if you played World of Warcraft, it's kind of like with the cat ability to be able to kind of like remove threat, or the hunter feint ability, which sometimes confuses me and makes me think that somebody actually died in our group. Things like that, I think. But his idea was it's a combination. So the DPS would have to use a skill and the tank would also have to use a skill. However, in my opinion, I feel like it would just be best if just the DPS has to use a skill. Because imagine in some of these where the tank has to keep track of the skills that 20 plus people are using to know when to grab that. But what are your thoughts?
Personally, for me, I do like the idea of having two abilities. Of course, you have your tank with your taunt, and then your DPS also have actions to be able to reduce the aggro. And it makes sense, like especially if you look at it from a raid perspective, that if tank goes in and he wants to grab aggro right away without like DPS overpowering the tank right from the get-go, why not have an ability that overpowers all of those abilities from the tank side of view, or just have DPS have some kind of ability that throws down their aggro usage or something, or just something that's built into the class already so that you don't have to worry about those aggro issues. But that'd make things maybe a little bit too easy. So I would, from like, for example, Final Fantasy 14, if you were to jump into a raid and DPS is too overpowering, usually you use taunt or something like that. And probably similar to World of Warcraft where you overpower and there's like maybe 3 different colors, just like Narc's talking about with like the skittish part of things, where there's like that teal, that yellow, and that red. I do like what he brought up because it's very similar to 14 and probably World of Warcraft, where your tank where like everybody has their own aggro listing, where you have your teal being like, you've got no aggro. You've got your yellow where like you're within the aggro table. So you've probably got maybe like secondary aggro on the list, and then you've got red, meaning you've got all the aggro for those enemies.
Right.
So
I can see that.
That's probably something that I'm more used to and probably would favor over everything else.
That's very similar to the sentiment I shared last week before Vertec, because you two are probably more experienced with the tank stuff, not me. But I was thinking it'd be nice to know what your threat level is in general, because then you know, okay, I need to slow down on my DPS or what have you.
Exactly.
Welcome in, Oracle and Vertec. What are your thoughts?
So, as much as I like in a coordinated, say, guild group that's in Discord talking with each other and being vocal, even with in-game chat, many people tend to turn it off. I mean, who here knows that Blizzard has in-game chat for World of Warcraft?
I don't know that.
There's probably so many that don't know it because everyone, they don't turn it on. They don't use it because they talk through typing and whatnot, because let's be honest, there's a bunch of people that play MMOs that are more brave to use the keyboard to talk to people and hang out than they already go into voice chats.
True.
Like, rated with a lot of people that they're excellent players, but when they join a voice chat, they just join to listen to whatever the raid leader is saying, and that's it. They don't talk. at all.
Yeah.
So, as much as I love that type of a feature, I'd really like to see that in a coordinated, like closely knit group that can work on stuff like that. Like DPS is going to say, hey, skittish. All right, taunting, distracting, I guess, in that example. Like, very, very well-oiled machine, knows how to work together, knows what cues to give the other people so that they know what's going on. But if you're just trying to jump in, listen to music, watch a movie or whatever, and play some games and, go questing with people, and you're not in voice chat with them, that's going to be an absolutely useless button, probably for both people now.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely useless, because the tank, guaranteed, is going to be used to tanking in other games. Even if they play Ashes mostly, they're still going to be playing other games. Like, that's just what happens.
Of
People
course.
play multiple games. And they're going to be used to other games where that taunt button taunts. It actually taunts. Distract actually distracts. It doesn't need to be used in combination with somebody else's button.
Right.
So something's going to start running away, and they're going to try and snap that button, and it's not going to work. And then it's wasted because now the DPS can't use theirs because they have to use skittish first or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the other thing that I was thinking, and I had a feeling you were going to touch on that. Because, again, it sounds great if you are coordinated, even in Ventrilo or Discord, whatever voice chat that you prefer to use. Although a lot of raiders tend to prefer Ventrilo over Discord still, because then you have the overall raid leader, and then there's the healers conversing with each other, and then the tanks conversing with each other, and then the DPS, and like a raid lead. So like then whoever is overall can kind of listen into any of those. And I thought that was a really cool system. But if you don't have that coordinated amount, like 90% of the time you have a bunch of people that are probably in game and are probably pugging and looking for a group to just join, and it's a part of the reality. Some people just like playing by themselves in an MMO thing, which recently I actually found somebody who was like that, who preferred playing solo in an open world game. And I asked why, and they said it was because the other people make the game feel alive, but they don't really feel the need to be a part of like the social dynamic of it. But they just like that there's people running around, and that speaks volumes, I think, to today's day and age in terms of gaming.
Plus it's an ongoing, growing world. It's not a static, like, here's your game and here's a bug fix and here's one expansion. Okay, pay to download the DLC and we'll make another game here in another 2 years.
Right.
And that's it.
A few things from the chat. Oracle the White, welcome in, says, Hunter's feint ability confuses me as well in group use. It's not like they could bring people back unless there's an item I'm not aware of. No, their feint is just pretending that they're dead. It's like play dead, basically, for Hunter. And it removes all aggro, so the AI thinks that the Hunter is dead and then immediately reduces all aggro on that Hunter. But as a healer, I hear that and I think they actually died, so then I'm like really confused. Veil Mistborn says, I also like hate ripping skills and hate reduction skills. And the hate system in general seems to be something that Veil Mistborn prefers. What are your thoughts on hate versus like mana or stamina or rage? Do you have a preference?
Good question.
Wait, did you say hate versus mana, stamina, or rage?
Yeah, just I feel
like
hate
is hate is a word that some people use for aggro.
Okay,
and threat.
gotcha.
Hate, threat, and aggro are all kind of interchangeable there.
See, not a tank.
And as like your job, your skills and stuff like that. Yeah.
So technically, I'd have healer hate instead of healer aggro.
Yes.
Gotcha. I thought hate was like akin to rage. Sorry.
All good.
No worries, no worries. But I like having a plethora of skills that are usable by multiple people. DPS should have a way to try to drop their threat. Tanks should have a way to snap theirs up. What do you think about stances, adding stances to DPS? Like a threat reduction stance, but what it also does is it slows down your move speed and outbound damage.
Question. I think that I don't know, it's kind of weird because not a lot of MMOs I normally see a stance or a DPS unless it has something to do with I mean, there's some classes out there that have stances, but it's more geared towards their DPS or how their class plays. Like it could be like a multi-facet part of whatever their class is, I guess. And it could switch between, I don't know, like damage dealing versus healing or something like that, right? And I've seen that in the past, but whereas tanks, usually the tanks are the ones with the stances to have more aggro generated versus DPS strong or something like that, where you just you don't think about aggro, you just straight up DPS.
Yeah, like you got to go into a tank stance to do more threat, but think of it in the reverse, to like break the mold a little bit. Think of it in reverse, like a DPS can do like a timid stance or something, where they move slower and they do less damage, like say 50% damage, but they also do only 60% of their normal amount of threat. So if they start really climbing quickly, they can do like timid attacks instead of legitimately like slowing down.
A world boss sense or like a raid sense, definitely 100%.
Yeah, I'd have to see how that ends up working out. I can imagine somebody trying to do PvP accidentally hitting that timid stance. You're like,
that would be brutal. But I mean, hey, think about it this way. Like, never mind. Yeah, because you'd just be getting DPS down by all these other people. Yeah. Never mind.
Just like, F's in the chat for that guy. Actually, Smeagol, welcome in, has basically attributes to what I had said. Whoa, this is a very weird view. There we go. That's the view I'm used to seeing. Earlier when I said that some people like playing MMORPGs by themselves because it makes it feel more open. Smeagol says, I started playing MMOs with EQ1. I joined guilds, did dungeons and raids, but the older I get, 53, the more I dislike playing with others. I still like my MMOs to have other players to interact with, like buy, sell, trade, auction house, and the potential to do dungeons and raids if I feel like it. So it's nice because it ends up feeling like I don't have to engage with these people, but they do make the world feel more alive around me. And I mean, when you do have people in certain games that are known to be a little bit more on the toxic side in group play, it's understandable because people like to gatekeep or, say, hey, you can't join because of whatever. And part of it I understand because if you have a minimum amount of gear score, that means that at minimum, like you're expected to be able to still like do a decent amount of damage to like not spend 3 hours doing half of the raid versus multiple hours doing all of the raid instead of half the raid, and I kind of get it from that perspective. But from the other side of the gate, it's like, you can't join us unless you get better or get this gear kind of thing. And then that feels very exclusive when MMOs are supposed to be like an inclusive work together feeling.
Just to touch on that topic a little bit, I've seen a lot more games or MMOs specifically where even though the game's been out for a while, like there are some developers where they're creating portions of their games so that you can play solo kind of thing. But
like Final Fantasy.
Yeah, actually Final Fantasy does do that. And it's interesting seeing that perspective because you come to realize that sure, like if I don't want to have to delve with all those other players or people that are out there, I can just do my own thing kind of thing.
Right.
And it's nice in that sense, but it definitely has like one negative of like, you can't complete raid content or the highest of end game because you have to be in a party of people and be with them. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I am so very curious to see what a party of 8 is going to feel like.
Me too, honestly. I kind of like it though, because like we've been doing dungeons, right? And there's like that 1 or 2 people that are like, I want to join. We're like, there's only 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, my only concern is going to be that sometimes you can't even find those 5 people.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And if raid sizes are going to be 40, I mean, we just experienced this the other day. We couldn't field 25 people.
Yeah, that was
we had
really
everything
hard.
we needed. Yeah, we had a 25-man raid set up. We had all the tanks we needed. We had too many tanks. We had too many healers. People went DPS spec, and we were still missing like 5 DPS, and nobody was looking to raid.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But yeah, it's just it doesn't feel good. But at that point, it's also like the other half of that equation is we were halfway. We were one of those people that were lower on the gear score in general, or like progression score. So like a lot of other people were clearing this particular raid, and we'd only halfway cleared it. And so nobody wants to jump in on the last half because of the lockout system. So it's just one of those like, ugh, feels bad, man, kind of things. But it happens, and like I'm interested in seeing how Ashes handles all of that. Vertec, you've played Final Fantasy 11. Robo, have you played Final Fantasy 11?
I personally haven't, but I've seen a lot of footage for it.
Okay, so Veil Miss Warden says, do you like the hate transfer attacks to stick mobs onto a tank? For example, Thieves had that in Final Fantasy 11.
That's a good point, actually. I would have to say maybe. It depends really on how the developers try to handle that. But if it does stick to mobs, like I think 14 does it very similarly, where like certain enemies are tied to each other, whereas in Ashes, I think there has been some instances where some enemies are tied to each other, but for the most part, they're kind of singular right now. So if you look at it that way, it would be interesting seeing mobs tied to each other, where if you aggro one, then the others that are part of their squad of enemies come rushing towards you because you aggroed that one enemy, and then your tank can just delve out all the aggro on all the others as they come to you. That would be actually not a bad plan. But if you just wanted to go for one, like in Ashes, it might be better. And it depends on the enemy too, right? How the developers made that enemy. So if that enemy is like super tough kind of thing, like for example, in the tank video, I believe they were trying to get some kind of white knight kind of thing, which was a higher, I think Steven said it was like an 8-man thing versus a 4-man thing like they had in their party.
Yeah.
And something about like that white knight was like a little bit higher for their level 15 team versus like grabbing a bunch of them together, and they even died at some points too. So it depends really on where those enemies are from in that area. But I think it would be also interesting, maybe even from a dungeon perspective, for them to be tied together.
Yeah, I could see that, definitely.
I have always liked abilities like that. Like, for instance, one example a lot of people know of is in World of Warcraft. There's hunters. They have misdirect. They choose a party member. They shoot something, and that thing goes to that party member they chose.
Oh, so it redirects the aggro. Okay.
Yeah, redirects the aggro, and it picks that enemy up and shoots it for the tank.
That's actually a smart idea. Yeah, that would be a cool ability.
Yeah, I could see that happening in like specific instances, like if there's like a group of people and you're trying to grab one specifically to grab aggro from, and maybe the tank has more of an AoE taunt, and you have the one person that can just kind of snag that one and just pull just that one. That'd be helpful.
Now, here's a question, I guess, then. What if, so would that be more of a tank ability, or would that be more of a DPS ability? Because would the DPS maybe roll with that?
I could honestly see that as a tank secondary type. I could probably see that as one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, that currently the way I see it in most games where I see that type of mechanic on player abilities, it's a DPS ability. And it's for multiple reasons. For one, for pulling things from like around a corner when you're trying to line a sight. But for two, it's also, when something else is getting away and the tank is all out of taunts, and hey, hunter, shoot that thing over there.
Yeah.
Misdirect. It's getting away. Or it's going after the healer or something like that. And it ends up also giving a way for the DPS to be able to concentrate on stuff other than just doing damage.
Yeah.
Oh, ads are coming in. Okay, misdirect them to me. That gives them something, a more dynamic role, something else that they can do besides just shooting arrows into something and hurting it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Right now, Ranger been thinking, waiting for more. Yeah, Summoner is one that a lot of us are waiting to hear from. I'm particularly excited to see how the secondary archetypes work with the primary archetype. So even with the few that they have, I would like to see how the primary secondary of those work. And I think we'll probably get that eventually soon, in terms of like maybe the next year or so. I imagine it can't be too far after Alpha 2. And a lot of people are kind of expecting or projecting Alpha 2 would be out sometime this year. Not sure when, but Paradox himself has said, you know, if they don't end up having an Alpha 2 this year, then it's going to kind of be not a very great situation for Intrepid, considering over a year, almost 2 years since the last Alpha. So I imagine with them giving away Alpha 2 keys last October, that Alpha 2 would be on its way relatively soon. And soon is a relative term. That's why.
Yeah.
Soon meaning in the next year. Soon.
No kidding.
But I mean, looking back, there's been a lot of progress on a lot of the stuff. And yeah, soon TM. Thank you, Vale. Our favorite thing to say. So this talking about mob leashing and aggro and redirecting hate to a tank, Azare, I'm not sure how to say this person's name, says this is a splinter topic, so talking specifically about mob leashing and aggro. They had a conversation in another thread, so they decided to make a new thread for this one. Right now, as of the shown flow in the tank update, mob leashing seems to be short enough that you can outrange mobs within their own area. Whether this is a default or not is unclear from the content, but there has been a concern raised that this will lower difficulty and challenge if it remains as it is. A relatively populated area would require players to run away in the right direction to avoid getting mobs on them. But if one could realistically just keep running until it's a safe area is reached, this may not matter. Since I generally only play games with no leash of this type, in parentheses, my main game switched from no leash at all, the entire zone will chase you, to if you do manage to get away, the mob just fades after a bit and cannot easily aggro others. And BDO is BDO. I can't claim to understand why this is implemented in this way at all, other than to make the game easier, as pointed out. Do you perceive this as a problem, or is the effect on difficulty something you either don't experience or believe should be in the game? That was a mouthful.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see leashing as an issue, to be honest. I mean, when you think about it, a lot of animals in the wild, in that real life place, they kind of, when they get aggressive, it's usually because you're in their territory.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you leave their territory, they usually stop because they need to go back and, you know, protect their territory, protect their cubs or their den or their food or whatever it is. They don't want to leave their area.
Place.
They just want to make sure you're not there.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I feel like that could be something that the developers could create per enemy. They could do something where they make one enemy where, like, sure, he'll keep following you until you kill him down. Like if he's looking out for you, like say you had a bounty on your head or something like that, right? He's going after you. He wants to go after you and kill you. Whereas animals out in the wilds, or different types of enemies that are in ashes, could be where, like for Tech just said, it could be like within a certain zone that you're in their territory, get out of the territory kind of thing. I feel like enemies should have a range for a zone. That would make more sense to me, as they have a range before they de-aggro completely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I kind of agree with that too, because at the end of the day, like on the one hand, I really like how World of Warcraft does this, where like if you're in a dungeon or a raid, sure, the leash is non-existent. The whole entire dungeon or raid is their turf.
Yeah.
But like if you're out in the world, you know, that's a little less likely. You're not gonna get as much of a long leash, and I like that, because also at the end of the day, you need to be able to get away if you're gonna die. You need to be able to like run away from something. I mean, if you can run away from a player who's PvPing you, maybe ineffectively if that person can keep up with you. But if you can do that, I think you should be able to run away from a mob too. And sometimes you just need to run through an area instead of sitting there killing everything, because you're just trying to get somewhere else. And that's the risk that you're choosing by not staying on the path. Be it the path may not always be the safest either.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, having a literal no leash anywhere at all is going to actually even do a couple other things too. Because for one, it would make it virtually impossible to get across the map in a reasonable quote-unquote amount of time, because you're going to have to continually stop and fight things that barely saw you and you got their attention from sitting on the side of the road. For two, that's going to draw those mobs away from an area where somebody else is trying to quest, and you have a train of quest mobs behind you that you're just trying to get away from.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
For three, that's going to cause excess work on the servers. If they're actually handing off from one server to the next, to the next, to the next, doing something like that, if you cross even 2 different servers, so you cross 3 in total, you go over like 2 server boundaries, crossing from one side of the map to the other, all those mobs are going to be crossing over with you.
Yeah.
And now you have
Also
servers keeping track of mobs that don't exist on that server. So that's more data that server has to hold and process too.
Yeah.
There's that too.
I feel like it just wouldn't make sense in terms of like if there was no leash like out in the world as an example, like the enemy would keep going and going, and you just, I feel like there would also be some more negatives of where the player would feel like, I don't want to play this game anymore because I'm constantly being chased down. And another thing, I guess maybe a little off topic, is just like mental health for certain people. Like maybe they'd feel like too anxiety based, maybe because like I'm constantly being chased or something, and that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
I would not want to feel that when I'm being like, or like, for example, a quest. You're in a quest and you want that aggro to go away. But say someone else is doing a quest and they need that enemy to be able to kill it, and they're like, this enemy hasn't shown up for hours. Where is this guy? He's all the way out. And, right?
3 servers over.
Yeah. So
running back slowly.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. And then that's actually where like Smeagol's point, that's where the idea of abilities that can drop aggro, like Fade from World of Warcraft Priest or Cloudmind from Sourceware Sage. I like those because that's also where that could be useful outside of a raid or a dungeon environment, where you could be questing and you could drop aggro and it would literally like have your aggro. So if you need X amount of aggro for the mob to chase you, for example, so perhaps you can drop that aggro and the mob will just leave you alone. I thought that'd be kind of cool.
That would be.
And then
I think usually those only matter when it comes to being in a party with other people, because it's not going to, if you have any aggro, it's going to keep going after you, like at all.
That's fair. But what if you could use that out of group to drop out aggro completely, so that way you can like try to get away a little bit easier. And that would just kind of tie into like the class kit,
Be an incredibly easy way to sneak into areas. Just run through the area, have all the mobs chasing you. You get to the treasure chest and you hit that button to drop all aggro for everything, and they run away.
Think of Rogue in World of Warcraft. They can do that. There's a really long cooldown, but they can do that. Feign death, invisibility. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So certain classes will have it, and it'll be part of their niche kit. But that also means that they're going to lose out on other powerful abilities people may have, like to do a really big one-shot damage skills that have like a 30-second to a 1-minute cooldown, or really big life-saving or healing skills get replaced with things like feign death.
That kind of reminds me of I think it might be a very similar ability where in a past expansion, it doesn't exist anymore, but for 14 they had a ninja or rogue back then had a smoke screen ability, and that ability basically, especially for a healer, if like there was healer aggro, for example, you would smoke screen a healer, because back then they had aggro issues until they fixed all that, but they would use that ability on a healer if you had that class in a raid. and they would completely de-aggro on a healer, and then the tank would be able to handle the mobs a lot easier. So that kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I would have to say myself about the leashing thing is if there was no leash, all it would take is somebody running through a lot of really powerful enemies, keep running on their mount and just not get dismounted, run into a town, and they have zero actual aggro because they haven't healed, they haven't damaged, they haven't done anything to those enemies. As soon as somebody in town heals somebody else, they're going to get swarmed and dead.
Yeah, that would suck.
That kind of takes me back to what, sorry, I have my dog on my lap. Huntington said hearing about hunters kiting world bosses into cities was fun and wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nair says, obviously we need leashing, in my opinion. Crazy not to, but getting it right and how mobs aggro and such can definitely be tweaked. I like intelligent mobs in elite areas, but sometimes you just want to turn brain off and grind predictable mobs. And that's a very fair point. And that kind of goes in with Veil Mistwarden, which is saying, I wonder if Ashes will use Final Fantasy XI's mob AI, where like the tiger aggroes by sight and it also tracks by scent. So if you use Deodorize or walk through water, they can't track you or chase you beyond sight range. I also like the idea of being able to sneak behind the AI, like where they're not going to turn quickly and see you. If you could figure out their range of view, you could sneak past them. And I like that ability too.
Yeah. I like, even if the AI themselves had like a view range, I mean, most enemies do nowadays, where they have like this conal range of like a real person. You can only see a certain view, right? But you can't see behind you. So if an enemy, us, if we snuck up behind an enemy, then they wouldn't be able to see us and we get the advantage. So yeah.
And that takes me, and Vertek, unless you have something else to add to this?
No.
Okay, that takes me straight into topic number 2, which is our like kind of in-game mechanics. And this one is from Reddit, posted by DC Guy 9990. Talking about stealth mechanics. So in the past, they mentioned something about a stealth mechanic, just because it's more recent now. Would the invisibility stealth in the new Hogwarts game be bad for AOC? Be invisible from behind, invisibility goes away from the front if you're standing 5 meters from the target. Any suggestion on how you would like stealth mechanics to work in AOC? And I haven't seen Hogwarts video quite yet, so I can't exactly speak to that, but I do know that from the movies and the books, he's got that invisibility cloak that he can kind of hide himself with. And I kind of like the way that World of Warcraft does invisibility, where you can see them if you look, if they're lower level than you. Otherwise, if they're the same level as you, you're able to see them, or like a better shimmer of them. And it's kind of fun going in as like Cat, for example, in stealth mode and going past enemies that are kind of close. They stop and turn as if they see something, but they never attack you unless they're a higher level.
Something's not right here.
Something's not quite right here.
That kind of makes me think of how, this is what I'm kind of curious about too with Ashes, is like, how does that translate from a PvE sense to a PvP sense? Because if we all had the same abilities, and say invisibility or something was part of a capable class, right? How would that translate? Would we be able to see the other players if they tried to sneak up on us, if they tried to attack us for whatever reason, right?
I'm just really quickly, just to jump in there before I forget, my brain just had a sudden image of a raiding party of people walking backwards towards a castle because they couldn't be seen from behind.
Oh no.
I could do that. That's funny.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
A very slow raid.
Yeah, a very slow raid, that's for sure, yeah. Yeah. I think,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking like, how would invisibility work exactly for everything? If it was, but I guess invisibility could work for certain enemies or maybe under certain conditions.
Yeah, I could see.
Go ahead.
Oh, go
You
ahead.
haven't really spoken.
But I could see if some people could get items that could kind of mimic the invisibility thing, but with a lot more fragmentation in the visibility. Like if you remember from the Rogue video,
Yeah.
or the
There's the
Ranger, whichever
outline.
one it was.
It was like
Yeah, there was like the outline and
it's like
yeah,
seeing through
backward
water,
boys.
almost.
Yeah.
But
I love that
if it had a
sound.
little bit more of that, and you could actually see like their hands sticking out of it when they're walking, because they won't be able to hide their hands perfectly well or something. Like
Yeah, that's actually a good
something
point,
interesting. That way they could literally try to hide by putting that cloak on and turning backwards and like hunching down by some bushes or something.
There
But
you
when
go.
they try to move, they're going to be incredibly obvious. Like incredibly obvious.
I feel like that kind of seems similar to the camouflage for Ranger versus actual invisibility for Rogue that Intrepid has spoken about. I don't know. I kind of like the shimmer idea where like you have to really look to try to find somebody, but they're not truly invisible. I apologize for the squeaking. My dog has found her toy. But the other half of that is I think if somebody is higher level than you, it should be hard to see them because like they're ranked up in terms of whatever, perhaps, you know, or it could be like the rank of the skill, right? A lower rank invisibility will do that shimmer thing. And then maybe if you rank up and you really specialize into invisibility, if you are at level or higher, it's hard to see you, like harder to see you.
I like that a lot better, actually. The whole low level thing that makes more sense because as you get higher and higher in skill, so do your abilities.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also like the opportunity for certain classes to be able to spec into like finding traces of people who are invisible or hidden and being able to see them easier, but they have to spec into it and include it in their build. And speaking of builds, I had another fun thought while you two were talking. And this will tie directly back into the last topic with tanks and threat.
Okay.
So, hear me out. Cleric primary, rogue secondary, raid healer.
Okay.
They can spec into it and add augments to be able to reduce threat by little as they cast out heals by casting like a little bit of invisibility effects to it to everybody so that they lose threat as they're being healed. But maybe because of that, the healer starts taking more threat, like it's a more threatening type of heal.
Interesting.
So it's a risk versus reward, but then the DPS are actually being shielded from some of that threat. And then now the tank's fighting for more threat from the healer instead of the DPS.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
I do have one thing though, is do I get to shimmer when this happens?
It's going to be a mirror ball party. Mirror ball party.
Exactly. The shining light. Yeah.
Shining, shimmering
Yeah.
splendor.
Yeah.
That's the raid name, The Shining.
The shining
Oh no. Bauchi says, I hope that all can stealth in a okay way, but only a few classes could master it. For detection, the same. Some classes okay at it, and only a few very good at detecting. I like that idea. And then Ashes and Nair says, oh man, I want to stealth on my summoner. Pay no mind to my minion, please. Nothing to see here. And then Veil Mistwarden says, do you like temporary invisibility? For example, potions or spells? I said yes, but I think it should be on like a scale. So for example, if the more potent the invisibility is in response to the potion, right, the shorter that lasts. So if it's really potent and you can go actually almost as invisible as a class skill, that should only last like a minute maybe at most, or until you get damaged. And then the other option being it's less potent, meaning that they can definitely see you shimmering, but it lasts longer, because there's that if people look hard enough they'd be able to see you potential.
Yeah, like 10 seconds versus a minute or something.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. Like on a scale, like a sliding scale.
That actually wouldn't be a bad idea there. Yeah.
Invis healing mechanics are theory crafting gold. Yeah. All right, that works. That works.
you imagine being the boss in that type of instance? You're being damaged from all these directions, but people are just slowly fading into nothingness, but you're still getting hurt. How much confusion would that be?
Wait, do you have to Thanos snap them back?
I imagine that it would just get, if it had a good enough AI, I'd imagine that it just gets angry and starts doing AoEs. Like, I can't find you, I'm just gonna AoE around me in a wide cone. So yeah. Well, that kind of brings me to the next conversation, because we were talking about low levels going up to higher levels. This one comes back from the forums, and this is from Iron Hope, talking about low level gear should look scrappy and poor, and progression should be slow. One of the things which I really loved in World of Warcraft was the way gear progression mattered, because you started off with very, very poor gear, peasant clothes, a wooden hammer, for example, and you worked your way up very slowly. Because of this, every time you found less poor gear, for example, upgrading from wooden hammer to a spiked club, it felt absolutely great. When you finally got some shoulders or a headpiece, it felt like your birthday. Because when you have very little in a tough environment, like this classic spirited MMORPG promises to be and should be, you're always on the look for the slightest improvement and very happy with the every slight improvement. This feeling, clearly shared by many, was very well captured by the YouTuber Captain Grimm, and he has a video in this link that you can go see, talking about quest rewards, classic versus retail. And I absolutely think this classic path is absolutely the way to go. And I haven't played retail in a very, very long time. And I don't like how, it's okay. I get called chilly all the time in World of Warcraft. It's fine. But it's interesting how the difference of gameplay in general. Oh, thank you, Vouchy. Welcome in, Ravan.
Oh, thank you.
Is drastic. Like, apparently, and I'm all speculative here, so correct me if I'm wrong if you play retail. I have not played retail. We bought like the previous expansion, played for a month and then quit, and that was like 2-3 years ago. So that, if that gives you any indicator, that's the last known thing. We were like 110 plus, and now people, I guess, max out at 80. I don't know, something like that. But apparently this new way like levels you up in a day, basically. And you just take a day and you're brand new character to maxed out character, just really fast. Versus classic spending, like Vertek and I took, I think, about a month to get from 1 to decently geared 80. And I appreciated that for the first character. Second character, not so much. I wish World of Warcraft would do something for their alt system. But in Ashes of Creation, I'm expecting this to be that really long, drawn-out grind fest, because it makes your character matter more.
I agree. I think that characters should always start from a low level and slowly build their way up. I've always played games with that in mind. And it sucks, like, if you were to start, like, say Ashes launched and it's been out for like 5 years, right? And you start to jump in, maybe there's some kind of experience buff to get you up faster than it was when it first came out. But with the game just starting out, I personally would not want to feel like, oh my gosh, max level character. Like, there's some games that are out there that can boost you to max level right from the get-go, and it's not fun. Like, I want to experience from the get-go the storyline, the like all the knickknacks and all that stuff. And sure, maybe there's some people that are out there that are like, oh, I want to get to max level right away so that I can be with my friends and play alongside them, kind of thing. That's a great sentiment, but there's some people that are out there that just want to start from the low level and slowly build their way up, create their own story for themselves as they go throughout their journey.
Yeah. Oracle, we had some hopium back then for World of Warcraft. It was one of those, let's wait and see how like the first like month goes, and then after a month in, we were just like, yeah, no, nothing really changed. This is not, it was fun for a moment, and then it was very much not fun.
For us, WoW was like that abusive ex where you're like, but maybe they've changed. They say they've changed.
Yeah. It's like, you know, when you have that ex that's like, I promise you I've changed, and they changed for like a week and then they didn't actually change.
Nope.
And you're like,
Well, I see you got better there, but everything else got worse.
Yeah. Glad I didn't put too much faith into this. Vilmus Warren says the horizontal progression will really slow down ults, and I definitely agree. And I mean, Ashes is probably not one of those games I'm gonna look to do a bunch of ults on, because of the nature of the game. But should it be something like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14, I prefer the way Final Fantasy 14 does with the class system.
Yeah.
Where it gives you a major boost to your second class if your first class is multiple levels higher.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be really disappointed by it if there's no kind of like an heirloom or like helping you get some alts up, because in a game like this where it's going to be incredibly social and there's a lot of different horizontal paths you can follow and a lot of different organizations you can be members of and a lot of different city types. I mean, for crying out loud, no game that I know of has done that, to where when a city gets up to its max citizenship, it ends up having unique benefits.
Yeah.
And
you know what? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, sorry, I just had an idea. But anyway.
I was even just talking about this to our guild the other day about how enabling people to make alts in a more efficient way than they made their first, second, or even third tune, like going through all the same quest and the same everything all the time, enabling them to level up quicker makes it better for the rest of the population as well. Because if you have a trouble filling a 40-person raid because everybody said, no, it took me 6 months to level this one character, I am not making an alt and I'm already saved, I cannot go in another raid. Whereas if it doesn't take that long, and say your second, third, and fourth characters can be done quicker, you can jump in multiple different group activities without any lockouts or anything to worry about. Because I'll jump on my cleric rogue. You need a raid healer? I got you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I shared this earlier while you were chatting, but Fauci says that if the game and story are fun, it won't feel like a grind, and it will be the best. Leveling will be wanted. And, you know, the hardest part is that, like, in World of Warcraft, when there's not many people, you know, you're trying to level, and everybody's like level 80, nobody's doing lower level content. It's one of those, like, I can't find anybody to complete this stuff with, you know. Yeah, welcome in, Thea. And I mean, yeah, Velmus Warren says citizenship is shared. It would be nice if your guilds, etc., were too. And I like it when a game rewards you for leveling up an ult instead of making it feel as if it's no different, or if it's troublesome. I think, I don't know what the word is. Not like burdensome. There we go. Makes it more burdensome, because like you're not rewarding me for the extra time I'm putting in for building up an alt character, which then allows me to maybe run with other guildias or something like that. And it's one of those things where it's a complex situation, and I'm interested in seeing how Intrepid plans to handle it. But it's one of those, it would be nice if, but if you at least had some sort of system to maybe, like Final Fantasy, gear me down, you know. Right. Yeah, and yeah, alts are very important, right? Alts are kind of the bread and butter. If you need something and somebody else doesn't have it, or if you want to just have a gathering tune, this is the character I go on specifically to go gather all the materials I need, or like supply the guild with, then you should be able to have that. You shouldn't be like, you know, it just with World of Warcraft, you get like a 20% increase for getting heirlooms in Classic for your XP, but you have to work really hard on your main character to earn those heirlooms. And I appreciate that aspect. I just wish it was more than 20%. I wish it was closer to like 50%. You know, a noticeable increase versus like, it's a little bit faster.
It would be cool if, like, say you complete your character, max it out, max level or whatever, you just hit that max level, and it gives you like maybe a token or something that increases that experience, so that you can apply that to any alt character or any alt class that you're trying to level up. And then it just make your life so much easier.
Yeah.
I just had another idea. How cool would this be? So during our tavern talk on Monday, I was mentioning something, how neat it would be for like a mentorship system if somebody got up to, you know, max level, and once crafting and whatnot got progressed to a certain point in a node, they could either purchase or craft training gear. And once they get a full outfit of training gear, then they would be able to mentor down to a friend's level and quest with them and go to dungeons with them at their level, because you're wearing your training gear that you had to dump money and time into to create. Now, what if you could do the same thing for alts? As your max level, you can carry a journal with you, and everything you do while you have that journal adds to that book, and then you give that book to your alt, which gives them kind of like a sustained rested XP. The more stuff you do on your main with that journal, the more your alt will learn from it and gain experience as they level at an accelerated fashion.
I like that idea. Yeah.
I have more I want to add to that, but real quick, Oracle the White says, what about a middle ground where your first character took a while because you are also leveling the land, and it's quicker for your second because it like the land is done leveling. I like that idea. I mean, that could lend itself, right? That kind of goes into like hand in hand with what Vertec just said about like the crafting progressed far enough. Perhaps by leveling up a node, you unlock that ability to learn something like that.
That'd be cool.
And then Smeagol says ESO is training gear that increases your XP gain. So it's kind of like the heirlooms, right? But instead of it being something that your main wears to level down, it's something you give off to your alt. To help increase your gain. I like that. That's kind of cool. That may not be how it works in ESO, but that's how I'm trying to apply it to Ashes with Vertec's idea. And then as Thea says, I also used my ults to play with my friends. For example, my main was in my main guild, and I used my ult to play with my friends that didn't play as much as I did, but still wanted to do content. That way I wouldn't have to worry about my main character being locked out. And I mean, that's an absolutely fair thing, especially in those types of games where there is that content lockout. And I mean, also at the end of the day, like if you say, hey, come play with me, and you have a situation, which is like, I don't know if, actually, I don't think he mentioned this on the live. I think he mentioned it specifically in the YouTube video. A little bit of a spoiler for you, but he mentions the leveling kind of like the way World of Warcraft does it, where if you are a higher level and you have a lower level, the higher level kind of steals a lot of that XP in terms of like, there's less XP being shared. To the point where, like, in World of Warcraft, if you're a high enough level, the low level gets like 2 XP. But in a case like that, you want to play with your friends, but you don't want to make the XP so minimal in response to that it's not fun. But the thing I was going to add on to Vertex, just to add like a bunch of stuff for you guys to think about, what if that journal idea then makes the scribe like profession necessary, because you could have a scribe copy that journal over, and then you can send that copy of that journal to your alt.
Now, here's the question. Vertec, was it Oracle? I think it might have been Oracle that mentioned this about how, or was it you, Chibi, where you level up the land and then you gain access to those abilities or that book kind of thing?
That was Oracle.
Oracle? Okay. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I wonder is if you got raided in that land, right? Because there's going to be raids, and say you lose access to that area, would you lose then the access to that book or that item potentially? Would it be a hard thing, or would you still have access to it because you obtained it?
I think if you obtained it before then, you should still have access to it.
Okay.
Yes. So they could even end up being something along the lines of a bonus that's attached to certain node types.
Yeah. That would
like,
be cool.
Let's say the scientific node maybe is the one where you can create a journal to write down your notes of your travels and whatnot. And that one is going to require you to have, say, a leather worker for the binding, and a scribe for making the pages and binding the book together, and then who knows what else, like an enchanter to actually enchant it so it actually force passes that knowledge on. When somebody's reading through it, it kind of forces them to memorize what's happening
like
and
the
learn from your
memory
mistakes.
kind of thing.
Yeah, so it'd take a couple different crafters to do it. Yeah. And then like the training gear could end up being a military node thing.
Yeah.
And then maybe you could get gathering gear that would help people, gather more efficiently. And that could be made in like the economic node.
Yeah, I could see that. That's really neat. That also adds a nice attribution to each of the node types.
Yeah.
Which we had somebody named OMG It's Noodles pop in and follow us right before we went live, and Vertec goes, somebody said nodes, and I was like, no, we needed nodes, not nudes.
Nodes, not nudes.
Smeagol says in ESO you can craft the training gear. Each piece adds to the experience bonus, and I think you can get up to 80% more experience with a full set. I like that. That is something that I think is a valuable asset, because that takes time, that takes dedication. You have to get the resources, you have to get that crafted. If you're not a crafter and you're the gatherer, you have to pay somebody to craft that for you. Or if you have a nice enough guild and you gather everything, you can have a guild mate do it for you. But there's going to be that time and effort put in on your main character to get that to your secondary. And I think that should be rewarded, honestly. I really do. And the important part there is that it is your second character, not your first character. Your first character, absolutely, you have to go through the grind, you have to push through. It's a meaningful part of the game. But your second character, if you're just trying to help somebody else, I think that would be important. The second thing that we talked about on Monday in regards to Vertex's idea was that that gear would automatically level you up with your friend if it de-leveled you. So if you are level 50 and you're playing with a level 23 and they hit 24, that training gear would automatically level you up to 24. So you're always staying with their level, even though if you take off that training gear, you're level 50. That was the opposite idea that we were talking about. I'm going to move this a little bit along, though, into Tolnar, for those of you that are Tolnar lovers. Cyber Acer, I'm not sure how to say this person's name, is talking on the forums about Tolnar architectural house and node design plus other Tolnar race designs. And they say, so one thing that should be clarified is I'm hooked on Tolnar, as it's for sure going to be one of my dominant races for alts. That being said, I was reading the wiki in its entirety. I haven't slept, but I'm in this rabbit hole now. I feel that very, very strongly sometimes. And got the node architectural influence of races. All the races there had unique building designs, French, Greek, Polynesian, so on, but nothing for Tolnar, which I found a little odd. A race of vast variety and no set theme, which I get is a bit hard to do off the top of the head. Beast, lizards, and so on. Do you go tribal? Do you go cavern stone? But then make them a little more carved for human-like references? I may have a solution. Kowloon, a place in Hong Kong back in the 1990 and prior, a multi-raced and multi-layered town to me makes perfect sense for the multi-abled cavern dwellers, which leads me to my next part. With the Tolnar race concept designs, I got super happy, loved their idea for years, and seeing the concept and how amazing that is was just a good day. But found it a little odd that it's only wolf, ape, and lizard, which I think there might be more, but that's all they showed so far. With variations in between. I'm not a deep cavern expert or really know ecosystems that could survive in those conditions, but I know of some hardy creatures who could, and each wouldn't add too much effort to the design team, I think. I would like to throw them into the mix. So fishben, nothing too crazy, just different eye options and gills, even if it's just for visual effect. Insectoids, nothing extreme, maybe like a chitin seeming layer on the outside, maybe mandibles, antenna, buggish eyes, so kind of like the way the Beck looked initially. I could see that. could even go further with straight up buggish head, locust, mantis, spider, etc. I think personally those two are creepy, but definitely fit an Underdark cave for years theme. And lastly, crustacean. Again, nothing insane. Last one I got is a stretch, but there's a heap of crustaceans that in that cave specifically. And these are just some ideas. But Sulfurin chimed in and says, I picture Gothic for sure. Voodoo and maybe some ninjutsu or Shinto stuff, but we'll see. What are your thoughts, Tolnar lovers?
That's a lot to take in.
Yeah. So basically, he was upset that there wasn't really a set. Not really upset, but he was a little disheartened, rather, that there wasn't really a set architecture.
Yeah.
Well, not really options. He just didn't see like a specific inspiration for the architecture for Tolnar.
Right.
So the thing to take away from that long post, sorry for that, guys, was that, he thought there could have been better creatures rather to meld the Tolnar with for living under, like, in the caves for so many years, and was giving out some options. But more importantly, what kind of architecture do you see such a mixture of races having?
With the Tolnar being so variety of things that they could possibly be, one thing that they could do in terms of like the lore aspect of the background of the Tolnar is they could say that they come from like a direct descendant of specific race, I guess you could say. Okay. Like say it's lizard, right? Mm-hmm. And say they only bred with lizards way back when, and that's all they were able to really, so then they wouldn't have to diverse too much. But Tolnar, I mean, it's so hard because like you said, you could go with so many different types of heads and various forms for their body, mm-hmm. so that they could be really whatever type of cave oriented race.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. It really comes down to the lore, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm personally imagining something just generally tribal, because if basically Armageddon happened above ground and they sought shelter underground, right?
Right.
Exactly.
They would have had to basically gather scraps together and whatever they could find and just make do. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a lot of the like the fluorescent and bioluminescent plant life down there, combined with just trees and bushes and just wood and rope tying stuff together. Maybe they got into mining and they got a little bit of iron in there too in the construction for the building parts.
It's a very like makeshift kind of. Like
Makeshifty,
scrapper almost, like using resourceful is the word I'm looking for. Taking use of what you can.
Yeah, very resourceful. Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say kind of what you were saying, very, very like scraped together mm-hmm. materials as the foundation for the look, but more advanced and more watertight, I guess. So it all looks well put together, but it still has that very tribal feel to it. Like they live off the land, so to say.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I also hear Ashes and Nair says that I made a thread about the Tolnar culture where I focused more on the caste system we know they have. When I think caste, I think India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and since the religion is a mix, I can see how Hinduism fits too, since it's very polytheistic religion. And I think that just lends itself to like, I mean, they talk about America being a melting pot, but like if you imagine Tolnar is literally a melting pot of races and creatures.
It's a melting pot, and some of the stuff didn't get stirred in too well. It's still very much on the surface.
Exactly. Interesting.
You know what? I could almost see a slightly more advanced Tauren.
Okay, yeah, I
Like
could see that too.
Yeah.
A little bit more advanced Tauren. Like, so they're not exactly like Native American inspired with like the entire buildings made out of stretched hides and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
that kind of a feel though.
Yeah. Nira says I would like the Tolnar to be more sophisticated, to be honest, in contrast to their looks, so more scholarly warrior poets with a knack for art. That'd be cool.
That would be cool, actually.
That could be a neat contrast. Yeah, absolutely. I have a feeling that for the, I guess more of a, I don't want to say realism, but more of a, what you could see actually happening in that situation would be that they were forced underground and forced to hide from all that bad stuff that came down.
Yeah.
And everything that literally chased every other race off that planet. It couldn't have been, they probably didn't hold on to many books. They probably didn't hold on to much of their, education and everything like that. It was more about survival and just living, and a lot of technical stuff probably got left behind. I would imagine.
Yeah, I could see that.
You guys remember, it's been a hot minute since I remember the lore from the beginning. Do you guys remember like how the world got destroyed? Was it instantaneously, or was there like some warning signs? I guess maybe that's probably what would get described in the actual story of the game, but I can't remember for the life of me if like the events of the world pretty much getting destroyed, if it was instantaneously or if it was over time you could see the warning signs.
Nira says it took some time.
Yeah, so I do wonder if like the Tolnar, if they were able to like take something with them underground to be able to like preserve some of their history.
Ooh,
right?
what if the Tolnar had like one of the relics hidden underground somewhere?
Oh, there's something.
Because you're trying to hoard the precious, like everything's going crazy. Grab like a precious and bring it underneath, something like that. I could see that happening.
Yeah.
A Tolnar based dungeon, maybe.
Oh, that would be
That's like a delve into like a long forgotten cave or something that like they quickly hid it there, out of sight, out of mind, and then hid in their own like little safe like community cavity, and rediscover it later. That would be kind of neat, I think.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
but,
and honestly, when I think about it even further, like if people had to run away from the planet and Tolnar ended up going underground and hiding. If anybody was going to maintain some stuff from the old days, so to say, it probably would be the Tolnar now.
Yeah.
I really put some thought into it, because because it's not like the surface of the planet was scorched with fire and brimstone or anything. It was just, the harbingers landed and did some damage when they landed, and then just decided to wage war on the people, right? So like you were saying, there was probably some warning, there's some time to prepare to a degree. People who left the planet had no chance to go scavenge anything, because they were off the planet, they were gone. Poof, they left Vera. The Tolnar hung around, and so they would have had a chance to go scavenge.
Ashes Nair says, I think Stephen leaked that the goddess of creation sealed off a pocket in the end of Roman advance because they knew a lot and not all could leave. So maybe maybe she made a library too. Oh yeah, it was good things. We were talking about your reaction to the Tolnar architecture, which is what we're on the topic of right now. But I mean, that's a really good idea. I don't know when Stephen may have said that, but
I hope he dives into
potential.
that
Right?
Like those sort of things are key to like the history of the world. So yeah.
Agreed. I do want to say it has been an hour and a half, almost an hour 35. So if you count the 5 minutes and then the 10, it's about 15 minutes. So basically what I'm trying to get at, we're getting towards the wrap-up time. We have a bunch of random topics. I think I'm going to kind of shelf those until Monday, because I want to talk about some of the Ashes news, and then I wanted to share this art piece that somebody posted in our Discord, and I forgot their Twitch name, but they go by Wuting Ye, and I think I maybe messed that up, but from Overlord, and we shared their art piece before, and I really like it. This one's a Pyre piece. We've shared the sneaky Vec piece before. So
yeah, I'm getting these all set up right now.
Cool. I just wanted to kind of share that. And welcome in. Happy Friday. I might have been the extra life lore drops. Can't remember exactly. Yeah. Things get a little hazy. The things I wanted to share is just reminding you guys of a couple of things. So, whoops, that was the wrong one. Official Ashes. There we go. So Ashes has requested your feedback on the looting update shown. I'm gonna pop over there probably in the next little bit to leave my viewpoint. But if you missed it, watch the YouTube video definitely, because they do go into the loot a little bit more there. For me, I just wish you could see how many people are doing what in terms of needing or greeting, etc. I feel like that would be a useful piece of information. The next thing that they want is talking about the dev discussion, number 47, talking about tanking threat mitigation. So if that's something that you feel like you have a viewpoint on that you would like to share, we encourage you to go over there and share your thoughts on that forum thread. It really does help. Your constructive feedback helps them understand where they may have gone wrong and what you might have preferred. And so I think that's like really important, which is why we on our show here like really push for that and help, make sure that whenever we give that kind of feedback, it's very much the same. And similarly, they want your feedback for the tank update. So if you haven't seen the Twitch or the YouTube video, I really cannot stress it enough. I think it is important that you watch that before you leave your feedback. Finally, there we go. Finally, if you had a question that you asked on the live stream, I feel like we'll go through this on Monday, but there's all your questions answered. If it hasn't been asked before. So that's all I wanted to share from the Ashes news update side.
Okay.
As you can tell, we don't really focus on Ashes news here. We focus on the community more so.
Yeah. Just kind of get out all the Ashes official updates towards the end.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's see what people are talking about out there, what they like and dislike.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's kind of why I like grabbing it too, and that's part of what our Tavern Talks is going to be more about, is we're just generally chatting about stuff, or like if there's a topic that we talked about today or didn't get to talk about today, we have our freedom to kind of freeform it on Mondays, so it's nice. But yeah, this is Pyre Archer.
Yeah, it's a little mischievous look there.
He says, "She's beauty, she's grace, she'll shoot arrows in your face."
That's a really good art piece, actually. Really like that.
I love their work.
And the Chinese characters on there is Hawkeye. And this is part of his Ashes archetype series. So first was his Vec Rogue, this is the Pyre Ranger, and he says next up is the Dunir Tank. So dwarves, be prepared.
Nice.
Be prepared.
Be prepared.
Just see if we can maybe commission some work. This is good
that would
stuff.
be really nice. Yeah.
Get some
I really
TGF,
like the art
TGF
style.
stuff commissioned.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Let's see. I have a new question, but before the new question, I guess we could do our typical, like, what's one thing you can take away from today's podcast? One thing you're taking away from today's podcast, I guess.
I'll let you guys go first, because I gotta think.
All right. My takeaway from today's podcast is people are interested in seeing what Tolnar are going to be like. and is very undecided on what that's going to end up being like. At the moment, at least.
My takeaway is I think that there are many ways that Intrepid could make life easier for those who have alts or would like to have alts and or would like to go and help new friends that they're inviting into the game with things like referral codes. And they could be tied to specific node types, which would encourage the population to have a variety of node types instead of all stacking one, because they all want to be militant and be bounty hunters and stuff.
Whole nard's whole death.
And I think it'd be pretty darn neat if they could do that. Make it so multiple crafters are involved with making things like little journals and training gear, so you can mentor down to people, and gathering gear that you can get made for your gathery peoples.
Yeah.
And maybe even a fourth set for the fourth node type that ties into maybe leveling speed for your alts, but everything maybe requires such an investment of time and effort that you're not going to get a full suit of everything done up for your very first alt. It's just not going to be able to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to have to spend some time on it, and maybe by your fifth alt or something, your fourth alt, you can finally give them a full suit of stuff that's going to give them a really big experience bonus. But maybe that requires specific relics that you find to unlock the chest pieces or something. I don't know. There'd be a whole lot of fun stuff involved in that.
Yep.
That'd be neat.
Robo, what's yours?
For me, I kind of have two here. Knowing how lore-driven Steven is with his story, one thing I'd have to take away is probably kind of geared in towards the Tolner a little bit there, with how the world sense and like making sure everything is cleaned up so that there aren't any loopholes in what is possible and what isn't possible with what happened in the final days of before the world was kind of destroyed and what happened there. But I'm sure they will probably cover that, knowing Steven. But if I were to say the other thing, it would be especially as a healer main for me, for in most MMOs, I would like to see an enmity list of some sort for knowing who has aggro and who doesn't, because that's a big thing, especially in raids or dungeons. I would love to know and make sure that who's got threat, who doesn't, right? So yeah, and hoping they refine that for sure.
Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna make a quick poll. Let's see who you guys wanna raid.
Who we want to go raid? Yeah. And right now it looks like two options to put it out verbally and give you a chance to think about it before the vote comes up. We have Tech Deck, one of our favorites to go raid, because he's always playing all the time, always doing something, usually around the time that we're ending. Currently tonight he's playing some Pathfinder. Looks like the video game version instead of like pad and paper. And then we got, continuing the tabletop theme there, we have OMF Goddess. Someone who hasn't done a whole lot of Ashes content here lately, but we'll be diving into it fully down the road. She's doing D&D, and I can't tell for sure. It looks like it might be either Foundry or... yeah, it looks like Foundry.
Oh.
Nope, never mind. I see the little things down in the bottom. That is Roll20. So you got a choice of D&D with OMF Goddess, with sparkles and unicorns and stuff, or a Tech Deck, chillin' skateboarder looking guy playing some Pathfinder.
Oh, okay. I also put Annie and Jamie for more Ashes.
Yeah.
Three options. You got about half a minute left. I made it short and sweet so we don't take too much time from this perspective. But while that's counting down, my question to you, Mr. Robo, is what is one thing that you would like the community to take away from our episode about you?
Oh, gosh. Put me on the spot.
Plug your stuff. shamelessly.
Yeah, I guess plugging stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of more of a humble person when it comes to something like this.
Oh, we got one person that voted for Tangent's creation.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess just keep doing what you're doing. Keep.
No. It's about you. What are
About
the audience
me?
taking away
About
from you?
me? I don't know. Should I actually?
Okay, how
plug
about this? How
myself?
about
Is
this
that what
then?
you-
How about this then? I'll direct your response. So you have the links that we've been sharing for you are the Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Discord. Which one would you rather people go to first?
There you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of social medias out there. No, just kidding. Yeah, for me, my best way to catch up with me is basically on YouTube, RoboGamer1HD. That's where all of my content is going to be at. And I don't do as much Twitch stuff unless it's event oriented right now, just because a lot of my stuff is just building my YouTube channel. So if you guys want to catch up with me, check out my YouTube channel, RoboGamer1HD. If you just want to see what I'm doing or updating, you can get updates through Twitter, and that's the best way to stay in touch.
All right, here.
Hoo-ha, hoo-ha.
Should I run the poll again, or are we just gonna stick with Tangent's creation?
No, we can probably just stick with that.
Okay.
Somebody
sounds
voted.
good.
I think
Yes.
everyone else maybe is one of, because I think every time we ask, I think most people are just kind of like, I don't care, wherever.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Plus, it's late enough. Some people are going to bed after this, so they probably just like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to have a comment on that.
So I
I'm
don't want to
gonna
put too
go to
much
sleep.
pressure on people's, because a lot of
Yeah.
folks just don't care. They just want to see something else entertaining, and they just go along and hang out there for a while.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. And don't forget, you can always come and join our Discord and hang out and chat about stuff with us while we're offline, or see when we're going online next. Come be a part of the conversation between podcasts, see what else we're up to, etc. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Robo,
Oh,
appreciate
I
chatting
guess-
with you again.
I guess, by the way, should we hold off the other announcement, the thing BCG was talking about, for next week?
Yeah,
Or do
I
you
think we should. That way we could just announce it when it's ready and not like beforehand.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, but we got stuff in the works. Just be excited to come in next week because we have an announcement.
Yeah.
Ooh, sounds
Be another
cool.
reason to join the Discord. Just
Yeah, stuff might be happening in there before we announce it. Never know.
Oh,
Yeah. But either way, folks, thank you so much for stopping in and hanging out with us. Thank you for contributing to conversations, asking our viewpoints, and responding with yours. That is the most valuable thing in the world to us. We love having you
Thank
here.
you,
We love
everyone.
talking with you. And Robo, thank you so much for joining us yet again. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's
Anybody?
always
You-
awesome being able to be with you guys.
Yeah.
Likewise. And this tavern doesn't give refunds on your time spent because we cannot give you refunds. Therefore, we're happy you spent it here, and thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time.
Until next time.
Take
See you
care.
guys later.